June is a great month for games, but a comparatively quiet one for mainstream releases. And the reason why is simple. We got a combination of things. The first one is Destiny 2, the Final Shape. That'll be pretty massive. And then all the showcases that Jeff Keighley can possibly promote will suck all the oxygen out of the room and dominate the news cycle. Then, the end of the month, we've got Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, which is going to completely wipe out all of the competition without even noticing. But still, a very brave handful of indies and AAs are going to be trying their luck. And of course, if you want to stay updated with all of this stuff as it releases, check out bellular.games. Over there you will find Loading Screen. We publish Loading Screen, which is our newsletter, every single day of the week. There you will find all the breaking news, lots of really great stuff, and as big games come out and interesting games come out and we see big hits, well, you'll find out about them there in real time. Okay, with that said, let's get stuck in. If you followed our coverage, you'll know that the Final Shape is Destiny 2's make or break moment, and to be fair, they've had a pretty strong showing so far, like big developments with classes, a new enemy faction, like finally, and a campaign that at the very least has got a lot of setup and very high stakes, and is following Lightfall, which is pretty much the example of how not to do your campaign. It itself, though, did follow Witch Queen, which was absolutely brilliant. Anyway, the expectations for players, I think, are fairly high, and a lot of that is because the pre-release work they've done has actually been good, their showcases have been good, but obviously, Lightfall did so much damage that this is a make-or-break thing. Shortly after the launch of Lightfall, they were down 45% from their projected revenue. That was painful, and it means that this is a massive moment, especially when we take into context all of the stuff regarding their ownership by Sony and, well, basically the threat of Sony kind of coming in and gobbling up their board. Anyway, it's the end of their 10-year-long light and dark story, and that does mean a perfect time for a great campaign, but also for players to hop off the train. Because for so many franchises, be it Marvel, be it even Final Fantasy XIV, they have struggled to keep people past their narrative peaks. But I think there's one thing that Bungie do actually have here, and that is hyper-juiced, sweaty grind progression gameplay, right? Like, at the end of the day, the big story will complete, but you're still going to want your Destiny 2 progress and gameplay because all of those hooks are into your brain, and I think that's going to be a major bulwark for Bungie against the very natural dwindling of interest that sort of follows a big narrative peak. Because basically, when you do a big narrative peak, you then have got to spend time doing setup, establishing things, and holding that momentum is a big challenge. I'll say that at the very least, I am interested. Okay, our next game. Odds are, if you're watching the channel, or if you're working in the channel, you literally were not alive whenever Killer Clowns from Outer Space happened. But that doesn't mean that, of course, a developer cannot do another IP-using, film-inspired asymmetric horror game. And this time, it's a 3v7, and they're leaning a bit more on the comic, because of course it's Killer Clowns from Outer Space. But the story behind this game is almost more interesting, because this is actually being made by the very same team that did Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th absolutely exploded. It was so goddamn successful, and then legal chaos actually led to it now being dead. It was a pretty crazy situation, so anyway, be on the lookout for that. And then launching into early access on the 4th, after a monumentally successful Kickstarter, we got something entirely different. Songs of Silence from Chimera Entertainment that wants to blend auto-battling with RTS, which to me does sound like utter crack and very dangerous. Looking at the game, we've got a pretty damn gorgeous looking watercolor world, a Total War style campaign map, auto-battler combat where you're kind of using character powers and that sort of thing. Overall, it looks gorgeous, it looks fun, and it sounds gorgeous because Hitoshi Sakamoto is working on it, and you might know him from Final Fantasy XII, Final Fantasy Tactics, and Valkyria Chronicles. Anyway, let's move on 2 days with a pair of simulators. So, do you remember a game from 2005 called The Movies? Well, I did because for some reason its box art stood out to me in the shop. Never played it though, and it turns out Blockbuster Inc. is a game that is picking up that baton. And honestly, it does look kinda neat. Like you're in the director's chair, controlling lighting, blocking, and a whole bunch more. And since the movies came out, well, a lot more people are into film, right? Into cinematography, into lighting, so I actually think this is a game that's got a better chance of hitting with its niche. Now, that being said, if you'd far rather control the location of people's organs, there's another game for you called Autopsy Simulator. Like, this is kind of cool. They're working with coroners and looking through the gameplay like, yeah, you're extracting squidgy bits and all sorts of things from inside people. But of course, as you're doing that, well, guess what's happening? You're diving into mystery. you're diving into the narrative, and it's a narrative that is a horror. Honestly, this does look really cool to me, and in a way I sort of see it as being hyper niche. Not in that it's aiming at a tiny niche, more that like it is aimed at a niche, and I don't know, it's at some sort of control dial to hyper. That's a very stupid analogy, but I just say, take a look at how true crime and horror has absolutely exploded on YouTube, even the YouTube channel ASKA Mortician, and loads of other similar ones. So I think there is a fairly big audience for this. The question is, how much of that audience is into playing horror video games? As an example, I know a lot of people who do get pretty spooked out by things. They actually enjoy horror stories and true crime, but it's that real-time experiential element that's a struggle for them. I'll be interested to see how this one goes. It does look cool though. Anyway, on the 13th, the Kingdom Hearts games are doing the impossible. They are returning from beyond the event horizon of a black hole. That black hole is the Epic Games Store, because yes, Team Epic has no longer got exclusive rights to sell the Kingdom Hearts games. That means they're on Steam and they've had a bit of an optimization pass. So that's something you can do. And speaking of things escaping onto Steam, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance is, well, I should say this new version of originally a Switch game is now available on PC. So Vengeance basically adds a whole bunch of quality of life features, new storylines, all the prior DLC. It's just one of those situations, and I think if you know SMT, you're probably into it. So that's what's going on there. And sticking with Japan, we've got a game that really, I kind of want to play, actually. So, Sunnyside is a game that is doing the farming genre a bit different. It's set in the modern day. The sort of rural, cozy core Japanese town thing. Like, you know those rural Japanese towns that have got absurdly cheap houses? I think basically the idea is you sort of grab one of those and you get stuck into rural life in Japan. And I can't put this exactly in words, but the way that Whisper of the Heart, like, gives me a sense of nostalgia for a time and an experience that I've literally never had. And well, the trailers and the media for this game are kind of doing the same thing. And I also like the very final bit of copy on their Steam page. It says, disclaimer, Sunnyside is a farming sim with no watering cans, shipping containers, gift-based socializing, mayonnaise machines, or endless walking. So, yeah. Fair play. They're trying to push the genre forward a little bit. Certainly you look at a lot of, ASMR videos of, like, doing X in Japanese rural town. I don't know, like a Jun's Kitchen video, maybe. Yeah, does seem like there's an audience for this. It seems like it's trying to shake things up a little, and I'm kind of here for it. Next, something I'm also very here for. Oh boy, I'm excited. It is Still Wakes the Deep. It releases on the 18th, and here's the setup. It's the 70s. You are on an oil rig in the North Sea, and something has found its way aboard. That is the basic setup, and I am kind of hooked. So yep, you're a Scottish oil rig worker, it's the 70s, a lot of that fancy tech doesn't exist, and of course, there's no way out. The oil rig is collapsing around you, you have no way to escape it, so you basically have to survive until somebody comes looking for you. I am very, very into this entire concept. It's a game that comes from the Chinese room. They've done games before like Amnesia, Machine for Pigs, and Everybody's Gone to Rapture. They tend to absolutely nail vibes, and everything I've seen in the trailers has got me excited. And the final fun thing for it, the team have actually released a free prequel game. It's called Oil Strike 75. It's on Steam, and basically it's where the corporate edutainment minigame surface gives way to more conspiracy theories and terrible secrets. And basically, if you want to know whether this game is hitting the right tone, if it's getting the vibes, check it out and see whether you're on board. Next then, and also on the 18th, we've got Blued, which is a hyper-distinctive game that, well, it's got hand-drawn 90s cartoon style, like right out of the golden age of Cartoon Network. It's a small-scale dungeon crawler that basically sees a teenage hockey-playing high schooler defending their town from demonic vampires. So, references, like, there's a little bit visually, Dexter's Lab. Also, Buffy, which, to be honest, is kind of great. Playing a bit like a classic ARPG where you're basically gaining power as you're uncovering the mysteries of the town. Ultimately, that looks pretty cool to me. Next, and also on the 18th, Elder Scrolls Online Gold Road hits all platforms. It basically takes you to the West Weald, dealing with the return of a Daedric prince. That is, of course, in and around the area where Oblivion was, and because I know, we're mostly PC here, I'm not really going to talk about it that much because it's already out in PC, but I will leave you with a little leak. Oblivion Remaster is rumored to be something happening at the June showcase that Bethesda are doing. If so, that would be cool. I know Skyrim is the big popular one, but personally, I prefer Oblivion. I think Oblivion generally had way better writing. I mean, come on, Dark Brotherhood questline. Oblivion, so much better. Anyway, imagine Oblivion remaster. Imagine if that then has got like mod tools. Oh boy, it'd be cool. Anyway, let's move on, because we've got another Viking-based third-person survival game with co-op. It's by Sand Sailor Studios. It's called ASKA? I don't know. One of them, maybe. And what it's hoping to do is be distinct from Valheim and other sorts of similar games. And they're doing it in a cool way. Number one, a dynamic weather and season system. The winter will bring out the cold and embolden the monsters that live out in the world to, well, you know, come out and say hello. And of course, given the game that we released, the Pale Beyond, and it's, you know, icy, snowy sort of time, I'm kind of down for that. The next thing, then, is the target of those monsters. And the second distinctive feature, and that is that your village is full of manageable NPCs. So this is actually more than just a base builder. The intent here is that these NPCs have got their own desires, they've got their own needs. You as the player will be managing them, caring for them, not just exploiting them for resources. So really, it's kind of like being your own little lord of your town, defending it from monsters and things, which sounds cool to me. Of course, it is a survival game, and that does mean it's launching into early access, and it's doing so on the 20th, and I definitely think they are trying enough new things to actually stand out. The next thing, though, is a tiny DLC for a minor game. It's called Elden Ring: Shadow of the Erdtree, and it's coming out on the 21st, which I probably don't need to tell you, because everybody knows. I mean, the whole industry's ran away from it. So this may be an expansion, but basically, they are supremely confident. Like, this is a full $40 thing, right? It's big. There's no more DLC planned for Elden Ring, which is, of course, one of the most successful games ever, probably. Here's the TLDR in terms of content. You got a whole new map for the game that is larger than the Limgrave starting zone. The story is delving deeper into the relationship between the royal twins, and in terms of gameplay, you have more than 10 bosses, you have 8 new weapon categories to expand your builds with, and of course there's probably a whole bunch of just secrets, lore, stuff to explore. Like the usual thing that they do so goddamn well. So, because of that, the rest of June is a little bit light. Everybody knows that, well, they'll just be taking $40 out of your pocket, and that means $40 less to spend on other games. There are, though, a few other releases. Until Then is a mystery-focused visual novel from first-time dev Polychromia that was delayed from May until June and now is going to be coming out on the 25th. They've essentially got an extra month of polish, so let's hope that has been enough to ensure a decent launch for them. And I guess at the very least, they're not exactly a one-to-one competitor with Elden Ring. I don't think they'll be fighting for the same dollars. And then our final releases are from Sega and Nintendo, which of course makes sense because basically they've never given a shit what the rest of the industry is doing. They just truck on, and that means that instead of Elden Ring, you can get Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. Yes, that ends the 13-year gap in the Super Monkey Ball games, which is kind of wild. Though you've probably seen the other thing those devs do, like a dragon, formerly known as Yakuza. Yeah, I know, right? They do that. I mean, it's kind of like finding out that George Miller of Mad Max fame also did Babe, and Babe 2, Pig in the City. Films about a talking pig. A little bit different. Anyway, to round things off, Nintendo are dropping Luigi's Mansion 2 HD on the Switch on the 27th. So there you go. A pretty light month. This is definitely shorter than most of these big, like, sort of release roundup videos are, but there still is pretty damn good stuff there, right? Like, I know at least for me, Elden Ring is in my backlog, so I cannot go near Erdtree for fairly obvious reasons. I don't know about Destiny. I will play that if people... There's people out there, I'll take a look at what they think, and if it's worth trying, I will definitely give it a shot. The thing I'm actually looking forward to the most, though, it's got to be our Scottish oil rig times, man. Absolutely, I'm totally down for that, because in a world where there are so many absolutely gargantuan games, be that through extremely sort of repetitious, modern loot shooter stuff like Destiny, or just sheer volume and quality like Elden Ring, I do appreciate just having a horror game that I can play in like a few nights. So, pretty excited for that. Of course, while this is a lighter month for game releases, it is not a lighter month for game reveals. E3 is dead. Jeff Keighley's tried to gobble up as much of that as he can, and many companies are doing reveals. So yeah, stay tuned to the channel. We're going to have a lot of work this month. Okay, that's it for me. Let me know what you're interested in, especially if there's a game you're interested in that actually is not on this list. So if you got any hidden gems, do let us know. Anyway, that's it for me. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Take care. Have a good day.